Welcome back, everyone, and congrats on reaching the end of 2025, which, in my opinion, was a phenomenal year for video games. I've said that every year since I've put out one of these videos. I will continue to say it for every year that comes after this, but good games come out every year. It's just the nature of the thing. We can't be upset about that. We instead must embrace it via the timeless tradition of top 10. So, for those that have been here for a long time, you'll know that I do one of these every single year. My very first video, in fact, was a 2018 Game of the Year, and here we are in 2025, continuing and going strong. So, as I always do, I have taken a look at all the 2025 games that I have played. I put them all into a giant list. I whittled that list down to only 10 games, and then I organized that from 10 to 1 in terms of what my favorites are. If you want to see that entire process, by the way, I do this every year. I'll put a link in the description to the highlight on my Twitch page where you can watch 4 hours of me going through, talking about all these games, breaking down the highlights, the lowlights, what I like about them, how they stack up against one another. So much happens during those streams. So if you want to watch a more detailed version of this video, that's in the description. Go check it out. I would say 2025 for me was a year really dominated by indie games. You'll see that in this list. There's not a lot of AAA representation. There certainly is, because there are some good AAA games that came out. But for, I would say that the big AAA titles like Death Stranding 2 or Ghost of Yotei, those are games that were sequels to games that I have either not played or not played enough of. I've never played Death Stranding, and I only played like the first half of Ghost of Tsushima, so rather than play Yotei, I'd probably just go back and play more of that. So for this year, for me, as tends to be the case for most years, it's an indie-dominated year, huge range of experiences, tons of genres, and I'm really excited to share some great games with you. So grab your beverage. I have my iced Americano right here. Tuck in. Get your wish lists open, because hopefully we'll have some cool new games to share with you that maybe you haven't heard of or didn't know too much about. Hopefully you can at least pull one recommendation out of this video. And let's just dive right into the best games of 2025. Starting at number 10. I was talking about sequels, and a lot of big sequels came out this year. Like I said, Death Stranding, Ghost of Yotei, Silksong, the long-awaited Silksong. After almost a decade, we finally got the dang game. And of course, the big announcement of a sequel, or the big release of a sequel to the original Hades, much beloved roguelike action RPG. And in the year 2025, I said to myself, Hades is such a great game. I would love to play some more of that, to get more of that Hades experience into my hands, into my head. And thankfully, we got a big release that allowed me to do just that. I am, of course, talking about my number 10 game, Lost in Random, The Eternal Die. Sorry for the fake out, but it's true. Lost in Random, The Eternal Die is an incredible game for fans of Hades. When you first boot the game up, honestly, you will think that this is almost reductive of Hades. Like maybe it's even a Hades clone. Maybe they aired a little too close to Hades, because the Hades muscle memory kicks right in. As soon as I picked it up, I was familiar with kind of the weight and the momentum of the combos. I understood like the dash distances and timing. It let me tap into the 100+ hours I've put into that super giant masterpiece to start playing this one. But thankfully, Lost in Random: The Eternal Die was a huge surprise to me in what it did to layer that Hades gameplay with its own systems. So minute to minute, you're doing the same things you'd expect in many other roguelikes. You start in kind of a hub. You can talk to characters, upgrade abilities, things like that, choose weapons. You'll pick one weapon, and then you enter into a series of different biomes where you're working your way up and through different locations, fighting bosses at the end of each of those, and ultimately trying to kind of, succeed, win your run. I don't want to go into the story details of what you're trying to do, but you're trying to get through all those different areas. Where Lost in Random mixes it up is they add in this dice roll mechanic where you can at any time throw a dice out onto the board. It will roll randomly, a 1 to 6, and you will, at base, you'll deal damage relative to the number. So, higher numbers, 6s and 5s, do more damage. But then, as you're defeating rooms and enemies, you're getting passive boons and upgrades that you can use to upgrade, your main attack, your base attacks, and things like that, but also these dice abilities. And so you can maybe choose a number of different upgrades that synergize well that all stack onto one number. So I've had runs where if I roll a 6, you better watch out, because I'm dropping AoEs, I'm doing status effects, huge chunks of damage, etc. Or maybe you spread it a little more evenly so every number does something a little bit differently. You know, I hit a 1, I freeze you. I hit a 4, I poison you. Stuff like that. And so that randomness, but the ability to control the randomness a bit, made the combat interesting and fresh and unique. And then they also have a card system, which is kind of like a ultimate spell that you can layer on top of things. That also makes the combat have just like that one extra layer, that one extra piece it needed. And for whatever reason, all those systems came together perfectly. They just drew me in. You know, from the moment I picked this game up, I was like, wow, this is a lot better than I thought it would be. And then for the 25 hour runtime, I basically couldn't put it down. And that's another thing I appreciate about the game, is that it does give you that full loop, that full satisfying experience in 20 hours or so, maybe even less, depending on how much side stuff you want to do. So if you're looking for a really satisfying run-based roguelike and you don't want to have to put a ton of time into it, I really would recommend people check out Lost in Random: The Eternal Die. My number 9 might come as a surprise to many of you, and it is one of the few AAA games on this list. My number 9 game is Mario Kart World. Now, I'm not a massive Mario Kart fan. You know, I love Mario Kart, of course, but like when you ask me my favorite franchises of all time, you know, even my favorite Nintendo franchises of all time, I would sooner point to your Marios, your Kirbys, things like that, before I would point to Mario Kart. But it's, of course, obviously, it's a staple, right? It's like Smash Brothers, where you're always going to find some time, some family gatherings, some hangouts with your friends, where you're going to play some Mario Kart. And because of that, it's always nice to have the latest one around. And Mario Kart World, in terms of a multiplayer kart racer, does a great job. But the real special sauce, I think, for this one is the open world. They've created this huge open world filled with things to collect and find and explore and see. And you can just freely navigate it however you want to. And when I first started it, I was actually a little frustrated because there is no checklist. There's no way to guide your exploration. And I was like, well, what's the point? But as I played it more, I started to really click into just the experience of driving around and playing it. And the main reason for that, and truly the reason that it is on this list, it's not because the game is phenomenal. It's good. But it's because Mario Kart World was the first game that I have had the opportunity to play with my son. So I have a son who's 2 years old. He'll be 3 here in spring. So he's pretty young as far as like game playing goes. But he's old enough to see characters he likes. And so he saw me playing Mario Kart World and he got really into it. And he was like, he wants to see more. And so it kind of became a game that he and I would bond on. He'd sit on my lap. He'd tell me what kart to play. He'd tell me if I'm playing Mario or Luigi or Donkey Kong or the little crab today. And then he'd tell me where to go. He'd help me look in the distance and spot the blue P switches. He's got the frickin' peepers of an eagle, man. He would spot one before I'd even see it way off in the distance there. And he and I just had a blast bonding over that game and playing it together. He'd hold I'd give him his own set of Joy-Cons and he'd hold him and pretend to play. It's just, you know, it was a very special time for me. It was really nice to see him warming up to games in that way. And it was just a good opportunity to connect with him. And because of that, I put 60, 70 hours over the course of the year into Mario Kart World, just because, you know, 1-2 nights a week for maybe 45 minutes to an hour, he and I would hop on, play a little Mario Kart together, and have a good time. And I don't know if he'll go on to play games as like a main hobby for him. And to be perfectly honest, that's up to him. I'm fine either way. You know, I'll obviously be there, and I'll have plenty of opportunities to share games with him if that's what he wants. But if he has other interests, we'll chase those and encourage him in that way too. But for now, in this moment, having the chance to play Mario Kart with my son was really special, and I couldn't leave it off this list as a result. You know, it really defined a big chunk of my game time in 2025. Moving on then, number 8 is, it's not a sequel, but it is kind of the follow-up to a game that I really love from 2018, which is Tetris Effect. So when Enhanced Games announced that they were doing the Tetris Effect thing, but they were doing it for Lumines, a puzzling series that I've loved for years. I was in. I was sold instantly. It was a day one for me, for sure. Picked it up right away, and it immediately gave me that experience that I wanted, What makes these games so special is that when you're playing a puzzler, it's very normal when you get really into it, playing Tetris, Lumines, whatever it might be, to get into like a flow state where you're so laser focused in, you're locked in on what you need to do, right? The rest of the world kind of shrinks, your vision starts to tunnel a little bit, and it's just you and the pieces. And Lumines Arise takes that, and then it adds in so much spectacle, so much audio-visual sensory flavor that it starts to turn it into like a transformative experience, really. Not only are you locked in the game, but you're just like kind of awash in the sights and sounds that they have. And there's so much variety to the different boards. There's ones where you're racing on train tracks. There's ones where you're cutting vegetables. There's ones where you're basically building a shadow man out of a backdrop light. It's very strange. But it was so addicting, so much fun. I couldn't get enough. And especially, and I would highly recommend anybody who's going to play this game, play it in VR. VR is what takes this game to the next level. It's great as a 2D standalone experience. It still would be a contender for this list. But the VR experience is really what turns it up, and what solidified it as pretty much a lock onto this list from the moment I started. Is you put that headset on and you're in an entire other world. VR can be a bit of a clunky experience at times, but when it works, gosh, does it work like nothing else in the industry, like nothing else you can experience. And Lumines Arise is a perfect example of the outsized potential of what makes VR great. So if you're puzzle fans, or if you're a Lumines fan and you're thinking about playing this version, I would highly recommend it. Coming in at number 7, we have one of the best gated exploration puzzle platformers I played all year, a phenomenal little indie gem called Ooh. That's O-O-O-O with an umlaut over the first ooh. In this game, you play as a bomb caterpillar, which is a caterpillar that can break off segments of its body and explode them in bombs. And that is your only power, your only ability. You just drop bombs, can blow them up. But the magic of Ooh, what really sets it apart is that with just that simple premise, that 2-button interaction, the game teaches you so many systems and ways of interacting with the world and creative uses for your skill set that you then are tasked with applying to progress further. So it does have like a Metroid style map. It's relatively linear relative to those, but there are optional ways that you can go in different areas you can explore at different times. Rather than in a traditional Metroid game where you would get the super missiles, and then you'd get the grappling hook, and then you'd get the bombs, whatever it might be. Instead, here, all you're ever doing is learning how to use the tools you already have. So by the time you finish this game, you feel like you have this entire arsenal in front of you. And if you were to restart the game from the beginning, you would clear it 10 times faster because you know exactly where to go. You know shortcuts. You know ways to navigate levels that you never thought possible. You know how to get through rooms that previously seemed insurmountable. You know where all the hidden secret paths were and stuff like that. And so as you play Ooh, it rewards observation, it rewards creativity, it rewards curiosity, and then its real trick is it just makes you feel like a freaking genius. As I was playing the game, the entire time I was playing it, I streamed the entire game, I kept saying to people, I'm the smartest man alive. I am actually the smartest human being that's ever lived to figure this out. And I genuinely, you feel like I cannot believe how clever I am. And then you go look at the achievements on Steam or wherever, and you see that 70% of the people that have ever played the game have beat it. So obviously we're all geniuses, or we all feel like geniuses, but that's the magic. That's the core of the design of Ooh, is making you feel like you're 500 IQ, maybe 600 IQ. So Nama Takahashi, the developer, previously who made Head, by the way, which is another great game, has absolutely knocked it out of the park here with Ooh, and they've definitely cemented themselves as a developer that I'll be following very closely. You know, they've gone from oh cool, they've released a new game to I'm there day one for whatever they do next, because this game is so packed to the brim with clever ideas. Not even to mention, it's adorable, and the soundtrack is like chiptune bliss. It's so catchy, it's so upbeat, it's so fun that yeah, Ooh is just top marks. As we approach number 6, I think most people that have been around the channel for a long time, or I've interacted with on stream, or that know me in any capacity, know that one of the genres that I'm really passionate about, that I really love, is rhythm games. And so I'm always excited when a new rhythm game comes out that I feel like does something fresh, does something unique, does something all its own. And that is definitely the case with my number 6 entry, Rhythm Doctor. This is a game that, you know, very similar almost to the Eternal Die. It takes kind of the foundation of borrowing from another game, and then it does so much on top of that. It adds its own systems to make it feel like its fresh own experience. And then Rhythm Doctor does all that much more. So at its core, Rhythm Doctor is easily described as like a rhythm heaven-like. So it is a one-button game. I played the entire game with a spacebar. And the only thing you are ever doing in the game is you are pressing the spacebar on the 7th beat. So, press. Did I count that right? Press. I think I got that right. You should never count on video. Anyways, you're pressing the spacebar on the 7th beat. And, you know, the trick of the game is that the visuals are... start as something that you're lining up that press to, but quickly move to almost an opponent in the process. So for those that have played Rhythm Heaven, you'll know you kind of get into a rhythm. This is true in any rhythm game, but in these single button games like that, you get into a rhythm. You kind of start to like feel the music of the game. You know, you're starting to bob your head, tap your toes, and you can intuitively feel when the next beat, when the next press is going to be, to the point where the game can like throw some mix-ups at you, and as long as they're doing it in a way that is like musically consistent, you still can intuit when the next beat is going to be. And Rhythm Doctor does that. You know, it starts out and it's layering flashy graphical effects and scene switches and all sorts of stuff. It's zooming in and out on the playfield, and you're just having to press the space bar in time. And then it starts to go completely off the wall. I would say it starts to borrow... It has like some Undertale energy to the chaos of how the battles work. So anyone that's played Undertale, you know, opponents are like shifting your playfield all over the place. They're manipulating it in size, stuff like that. Rhythm Doctor borrows some of that energy. So, and this might be a minor spoiler for those that are curious, but I feel like it's important to describe to like really sell just how weird this game gets and how much fun it is. In one of the early bosses in Rhythm Doctor, you're playing the game full screen on your monitor, and as the song starts, the game shrinks it down to a window on your desktop. And then in time to the music, the window starts like moving and navigating around your desktop. Your actual PC desktop, it's moving around. And then it starts on the beats, like banging into the sides of your monitor or dropping down below your taskbar. And then the game will split into 2 separate application windows, 2 instances of the game running at once. And in time to the music, they're like smashing together, or one is smashing into the other and like cracking this window and breaking it apart in time to the music, which is something I've never seen another game do at all, let alone another rhythm game. It's very similar. Honestly, it reminds me a lot of, this is a reference that basically helps no one, but it's a lot like not ITG. It's like custom charts in a rhythm game that are designed to be visual spectacle, and the challenge is kind of keeping the rhythm to play them while parsing all this visual information, which is just so fun. It's so different from every other rhythm game that comes out on like modern platforms. You know, so many rhythm games want to be like very high skill, score chase, kind of play it forever type games, which I love. I literally do that. I play those games all the time. But that doesn't mean that there isn't space for a game like Rhythm Doctor here, where we can just do something creative and unique in the genre. So, yeah, probably the biggest like surprise for me all year. As I was playing it, every 20 minutes I was saying out loud, I can't believe what I am seeing. Oh my God. So, just a pleasant treat, one for rhythm game fans. And even if you're not a rhythm game fan, honestly, this might be kind of a fun introduction to rhythm games because you only need to press the one button and that's all you need to parse. So, imagine playing Guitar Hero, but all you have to do is strum. You don't have to press any of the buttons. So, check out Rhythm Doctor, please. It needs more love. My number 5 is a game that I have not seen on anybody else's Game of the Year list, and I think that is a dang tragedy. Number 5 is Stray Children. Stray Children is the follow-up, spiritual successor, sequel adjacent game to Moon Remix RPG, which was originally a PlayStation 1 Japanese exclusive RPG, anti-RPG game. But it did get localized here early 2020s, I think, maybe. A couple years ago, it got localized and brought over so people could finally play it in English. Phenomenal game. One of my favorites. It was one of my favorites from that year when I played it. But Stray Children now is the first original game from those developers doing something similar to Moon Remix RPG. So after, the late 90s when Moon was developed, those developers on that team split off. They formed multiple other studios that made a bunch of other games. Some of them went on to make weird games like Tulip on the PlayStation 2 and Rule of Rose on the PlayStation 2. Others worked on indie projects like Million Onion Hotel and Blackbird, but many of them have come back together now to basically pick up where they left off on the PlayStation 1 and make a new spin, a new creative take on the RPG genre with Stray Children. Very fun game if you're, again, twice now that I'm referencing this game in the same Game of the Year video, which is strange. But if you're a fan of Undertale, you'll feel very familiar here because it has a similar system. All combat that you get into is optional in that you can either, do the RPG thing, get weapons, level up, beat the enemies by fighting them. If you do fight them, it has kind of a Shadow Hearts style ring system where you can time your button press for critical hits. Or you can talk to enemies. You can speak with them and try to basically work out your problems. Try to come to terms. And so when you talk to them, you'll be presented with a number of different options, usually 6 different options, and you have to choose the right ones in the right order. So how do you know what options to choose to kind of go the pacifist route? That's the fun part, is there's a lot of different context clues you need to pull together. One is things happening in battle. Sometimes there'll be aspects of an enemy's visual design that you need to comment on. Sometimes they'll say something or do something that there's a kind of a natural reaction to. And then also often outside of the combat, in the world, you will find these broken shells, kind of these empty statue husks of the enemies that when you investigate them, they'll tell you a little bit of trivia, a little bit of interesting information about that opponent. So you might learn, oh, this person is very into nursery rhymes because they used to read them or sing them to their child. And then the options in combat to talk to them, you might notice that if I say these 3 things in this order, that's Mary Had a Little Lamb. Or another example is someone says that they're like a mathematician that's obsessed with circles. And then the options to talk with them are all random, just numerical strings. But if you pay attention, you'll notice that if you choose them in the right order, you can say to them the first 12 digits of pi. So just goofy, weird stuff like that, which makes the pacifism system very interesting and very fun. And then the game itself has a perfect encapsulation of like rental PS1 energy. Did you ever go to the rental store and you plucked a random PS1 RPG off the shelf? Or maybe, your friend had imported some random PS1 games and you popped it in and you couldn't really understand what was going on. You really didn't know how the game worked. Maybe you couldn't even read the language, but you still found a way to have fun, right? You still found a way to get something out of that game. And because there were parts that were kind of impenetrable, it almost made that game more in your mind. Like it built an internal legend for you where you're like, I love this game and I don't even know everything it has to offer. I don't even understand everything it has. Stray Children has that feeling, kind of that warm, nostalgic, fuzzy, endless potential kind of feeling that can only come from a studio, I think, that started in that PS1 era and has moved forward. So, Really a great game. Highly recommend folks check it out. And if you're an RPG fan who's looking for something a little different, I think you'll have a phenomenal time. Number 4. Number 4 is a game that when I first started playing it, I actually didn't like at all. I was pushing up against it, and I was experiencing some frustration. But by the end, I was fully sold, and that is Wandertop. Wandertop is a game that is... It's kind of a super team of developers. It's got a number of different folks that have worked on a variety of different indie games. You know, C418 from the composer for Minecraft does music here. And they all came together to create this game that really, at its heart, is about reflection. It's about internal meditation. It's about understanding your place in the world. The game itself is about running and managing a tea shop. You play as this warrior she's basically undefeated. She's the top of her game. She's the best warrior in the world, and she finally loses a match. So she goes running off into the woods and needs some time to reflect on, like, how can she get back on top? And she gets lost and comes across this tea shop. She meets this incredible character named Boro. And he's basically like, I think you just need some time to slow down, internalize, reflect on what you want out of life. You can stay here and work my tea shop. Other characters will come in, and sometimes they're like, hey, I want a black tea with milk. But a lot of times, they'll give you more abstract tea orders. They'll be like, I'm looking for something that tastes nostalgic. And you talk to them, get to learn a little bit more about them. You investigate the local teas and figure out what teas might, ring a bell, has notes of their childhood. And then you brew a tea for them and see if they like it. And that gameplay is fine. If you like a good cozy game, a good sim game, a good Stardew Valley, you'll have fun with the farming, tea management side. But what really makes Wandertop powerful is how it forces you to sit down and really think about what you want out of yourself, what you want your identity to be, and how you show up in the world through the lens of that identity. So it speaks a lot to burnout and a lot to what happens to people when they are burned out and how pushing through that only makes the problem worse, which is a lesson that I think a lot of people could definitely take. But it's weirdly targeted to people that create things. So anyone out there that makes art or YouTube videos or streams or anything, it talks about, are you the things you create? Is the success of what you make or the success that you find in what you do really who you are? How should those two things be lining up? And it's more about finding a way to move forward, finding a way to absorb all of the different inputs into your life, really understand what makes you tick, and then create an internal motivation that is sustainable to go forward in life and do good things. So there's so much more too about the game. Like, the themes are coming at you left, right, and center with this one. It really is the type of game that anyone will take something away from it, and it will force you to, I think, be a little bit of a better person, which almost no game could really ask you to do. But you have to be willing to hear the message, which I was not in the first few hours. I was pushing up against it, but like I said, by the end, I left that game in tears, man. It's really something special. And if you don't play it, at least go listen to the soundtrack. Holy crap, the soundtrack on that game is good. All right. Top 3. The big ones, all right? Every game here has been great so far, but these are the 3 that have been selected to be better than all the rest. The first one here, number 3, is going to be a follow-up to one of my favorite role-playing sci-fi adventures. That is Citizen Sleeper 2. Citizen Sleeper 2 feels in many ways, to me, like the perfect sequel. In a year filled with sequels, this feels like the perfect sequel. I've been singing the praises of Citizen Sleeper 1 for years now. I think it's just a tremendously well-designed game. And Citizen Sleeper 2 blows that up, expands it in all the right ways. In Citizen Sleeper 2, you play, obviously, as a sleeper, which is someone who has basically sold their body to corporations and are operating an android or a sleeper that is doing work on behalf of that corporation before they can get their body back. So you are not really yourself in this body, but you also don't really have any connection to your old body. So there's a lot there for the character to process about identity and who they are, how what makes them a person, basically. And the first game explored those themes really well. Citizen Sleeper 2 does as well, but what Citizen Sleeper 2 does is it expands the scope of the world. And as a result, it expands the scope of how that character's identity relates to their environment and the people in that environment. The first game was all about exploring just one location, Erland's Eye, this one station, and getting to know the people there. Citizen Sleeper 2 expands that to an entire star system, an entire colony. And so you'll travel to different planets, moons, stations, and you'll meet all these different characters that will join your crew. And you start to learn, like, this is a harsh world. There's a lot out to get you. There's literally someone chasing you. So, like, this is not a safe place. It's a hostile world. You're out in the cold vastness of space. There's enemies around every corner. This is not a place where you can just relax. But we still must carry on, you know? And so Citizen Sleeper 2 does a lot of exploration around how we make relationships with other people and how that is a symbiotic thing, right? Like how I can get motivation from you, you can get motivation from me. I can help you without expecting help in return, vice versa. Sometimes I need to place my trust in you, even if I don't know if that's the right idea. Sometimes when I do place trust in someone, I'm going to get burned. And does that mean I shouldn't trust people again in the future? There's so much complexity to the relationship dynamics in Citizen Sleeper 2 that all feed back into this this core theme of like relationships as it relates to identity, and how you can find value in your life in a world where you necessarily don't have all the comforts afforded to you, which is tough. They do a really good job of layering the systems in to meet those themes too. The big thing that Citizen Sleeper 2 adds on top of the original Citizen Sleeper is a stress system. So you play the game by going out on jobs and rolling dice. You'll roll 5 die, and then you can take those 5 rolls and plug them into different scenarios. So, you know, maybe I need to strip back some metal to explore deeper into an abandoned space station. I can plug a 5 or a 6 that I rolled and pretty much guarantee I'm going to strip that metal successfully. But if I plug a 1 or a 2, I might take some health damage, or the new system in this game is I might take some stress damage, which will make future dice rolls more likely to be low rolls. And so it's about dealing with the dice you have, you know, making it work. Sometimes you're blessed with a bunch of high rolls and the job goes smooth and there's no friction. Sometimes it seems like everything's going wrong and you can only roll low. You keep making mistakes. Those compound on each other. You're getting more stressed. But again, you must push forward. You must continue through even in spite of that. And you must continue to make it work. So it's fascinating to play. It's even better to reflect on. Citizen Sleeper 2 is phenomenal, top to bottom. I highly recommend people play both of those games. Easily landed a spot in my top 3. Number 2 is one of the biggest surprises of the year for me. I was aware of this game prior to it launching, but I really wasn't following the development and I wasn't too locked in on it. But then it came out and it got some buzz, and I knew that I couldn't ignore checking out Blueprints. And it's funny that I was ignoring this game for some time because, honestly, this is exactly my type of game. You know, folks that have been around the channel will know last year, you know, one of my favorite games was Animal Well. And prior to that, one of my games of the year has been Tunic. So I love a game that is packed with mystery, a game that is filled with secrets, with things to learn, with ways to kind of contextualize the world that changes how you play going forward. And Blueprints is maybe the best at that of any game I've ever seen. There's so much to discover, to learn, to do in Blueprints that like the threads to pull are seemingly endless. The roguelite nature of it too complements that really well, because you know you'll be playing and you'll discover a little something odd. You'll be like, what the heck's going on there? Maybe you make a note in your notebook and you say to yourself, I gotta look further into that, but I need to get into the dining room to do that, or I need to get into the study. Well, the game only lets you randomly roll rooms, and so you might not see the study for 4 or 5 runs, 4 or 5 days in game. And rather than get like frustrated, like, oh my god, I can't find the study, I'm never going to solve this puzzle, as I'm waiting for the study to appear, I probably discovered 10 new threads to pull. And so my notebook was just, I had like a whole page of like kind of open secrets that I wanted to check on, do some research on, test some theories on, etc. I've never felt like I had so much choice in a game, and I really think that the randomness is a good part of that, because you'll always be discovering something new, but also it's going to force you sometimes to go through rooms you've already been through before, which gives you a second chance to reflect on what you're seeing there, and maybe now with new information, a light bulb goes off, or maybe you notice something you didn't notice before. So the backtracking and the repetition feeds back into the mystery and the loop of trying to get to room 46 and beyond. This is one of those games that as I was playing it, I was texting friends saying you have to play it. I was texting friends swapping theories. I was in Discord messages and Discord groups talking to people swapping theories. Like, it consumed my thoughts. It was like Blueprints was the only thing I could think of for like a month. I was so deep into it. And even now, there's still so much more for me to go back and do. I will absolutely revisit it in 2026 and continue where I left off. There's so much I want to try. And I'm just so impressed with everything that there is in Blueprints. I don't understand how all these years later, we're still getting experiences like this that are built out of theoretical pieces you understand. Like, these are components that you've seen in other games before. There are other roguelites, but they're put in such creative combinations and with so much extra care and attention that it feels like something entirely fresh. I've been playing games for 35 years of my life, and here Blueprints comes along that is something I've never seen before and completely knocks me back flat-footed. So yeah, really special puzzle game. I think a lot of people would have expected this to be my game of the year. I would have in many cases, but there was one game that stole my heart even more than Blueprints. Here we are at number 1, and looking back on 2025, this was a phenomenal year. 10 spots is just not enough. There's so many games I wish I could have included. There were so many near misses, so hard to get it down to only 10. There was never a doubt in my mind that this game would be here ever since I first played it on day 1. It's a game that many of you love. It's a game that has taken the world, honestly, it's taken the gaming world by storm. It's blown up in a way that I don't think we've seen since maybe Elden Ring, where everyone and their brother is playing it. I'm of course talking about Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I would love to come to you here today and say that I have some obscure, no one's ever heard of it, number 1 game. I would love to, elevate Blueprints to that status, to be consistent with some of my previous years. I mean, I'm someone who has brought a game from Dreams as my number 1 game of the year before. PlayStation 4's Dreams, that is on its last dying breaths. But I can't deny, sometimes when the general consensus is right, they're just right. Because, my God, did Clair Obscur over-deliver on everything that I wanted. I've actually been following Clair Obscur for like a year plus now. Like, I was really excited and anticipating it. This was my most anticipated game of the year because I love turn-based RPGs and I love games like Lost Odyssey. And Clair Obscur felt like it was the next game in that lineage. It was going to be this generation's Lost Odyssey. And then actually picking up and playing it and being like completely floored by how well realized its world was. I mean, there's such attention to detail. There's so many little things that feed into making this world feel fresh and unique and cohesive. There's so many small things that you appreciate early and then are recontextualized later, and you're able to like see how they fed into the larger narrative, even though they didn't initially seem that way. The premise itself of, this expedition that's going out to defeat this unknown villain called the Paintress that is seemingly slowly eliminating the population year by year, age by age. It's such a strong setup for like an adventure, an RPG adventure. And then you meet the characters and you see how human and how relatable they all are. This has got to be the best one of the best casts, if not the best cast in an RPG that I have ever seen. The way that they interact with each other is so genuine. It's so earnest. There's so many small details in Clair Obscur that really sell it. Like, really pay attention the next time you're playing it. The voice acting and the voice work and the performances are next level. Characters they'll stammer. They'll, like, stutter over a word and repronounce it. They'll have pauses in their speech that are natural, the way humans really talk. It all feels very, very human. As characters are talking, other characters will have reactions to them in real time. It's not just like this person delivers their line, camera cuts, this person delivers their line. Someone will say a line, halfway through, one of the characters will kind of like give a little eye roll, or they'll like give a little exasperated sigh before the other person has even finished talking, because they know what they're about to say. And so it makes the back and forth feel like a genuine, real human conversation, which builds a lot to those characters feeling like complete pictures. And these are characters that are not perfect. They have problems that they need to get over. They have baggage that they're bringing with them. They have ways of navigating the world built on their experience that are a lot of times not healthy and that need to be processed. So much to unpack and grow and learn with these characters. That's not to speak of any of the major story revelations, which completely uproot kind of your expectations of what the game is going to do. Yeah, I just think that the narrative and the characters are so strong. And that is paired with one of the best battle systems that I've experienced in an RPG before. Now, we've had timing-based battle systems prior. You know, the Mario and Luigi games exist and they rule, and I acknowledge them. But the way that Expedition 33 takes that mechanic and layers a little piece, a little taste of the soul's energy on there to like crank up the difficulty and really reward paying close attention and like executing on perfection, I was addicted. You know, playing it is like playing a rhythm game. You get into a flow state, and when you are absorbing and deflecting enemy attacks that are strings of 3, 4, 5 hit combos, and you can just sort of like intuit, even deflecting the first time you ever meet them, intuit when to parry, and you're perfectly dodging them and getting big counterattacks with big flashy visual effects. There's just nothing. There's no feeling like that. There's nothing that even comes close to how cool you feel in those moments. So, the whole time I played Expedition 33, I was so grateful that this team had the vision they did and were able to execute on it with absolutely no compromises. This is so clearly a game created 100% out of passion, which I love to see. I hope that we get a sequel, but I'll be there for whatever Sandfall does next. It is truly like a remarkable, phenomenal RPG. It does deserve all the accolades it gets. And this might be the only year of my life that my Game of the Year lines up with the Game Awards Game of the Year. But here we are. I can't deny it. When you're right, you're right. Expedition 33 is the best game of 2025. And that's going to do it. There were obviously so many games I would have put on this list if I had the space, the time, the opportunity. But I generally don't do runner-ups, so you get these 10. But I would love to know what your favorite games of the year are. Obviously, and I probably should have said this up front, this is my list. This is personal to me. This is not making any larger statement. I feel these are the best games that came out this year, and I could defend those points. But different people have different tastes. This is all subjective. It's fun. It's celebratory. And I would love to know what games really struck a chord with you. So feel free to let me know your top 10 games or just your favorites from 2025. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to 2026. It's going to be another great year for games, I'm sure. And I can't wait to play some big releases that I'm anticipating and also play some stuff that I have no idea is even being made at this time. So as we close the books, I just want to say thank you all for hanging around and enjoying this channel. Like I said, it's been 7 years since I've been doing this. It's a pretty long time, but what can I say? I like talking about video games, and I certainly love playing all these great games and sharing them and talking to all of you about them. So, hope you have a great New Year's. Thanks to everybody for watching, and I will chat with you in the next one.